What if I told you that the direction of your life could change, not next month, not next year, but today, just by asking yourself the right questions? No, not surface level questions like what should I wear or what should I eat, but deep, soul shaking, clarity giving questions that cut through the noise and bring you face to face with your truth. Because clarity isn't found in answers. It's found in the questions we dare to ask ourselves. The truth is, most people are not lost because they lack ambition. They're lost because they never stop to examine who they're becoming. They wake up, go through the motions, live on autopilot, and wonder why their life doesn't feel like it's theirs. You are not most people. Not anymore. It's time to take back the steering wheel of your life. Here are 12 questions you must ask yourself every single day. Questions that challenge your character, align you with your purpose, and wake you up to the power of your potential. Let's begin. Every day, we are given a fresh opportunity to redefine who we are and how we show up in the world. The question, am I proud of the person I was today, is not just a reflection. It's a tool for transformation. It forces you to take a deep, honest look at your actions, thoughts, decisions, and the energy you brought into every space. Pride in yourself doesn't come from perfection. It comes from alignment. It comes from knowing that you acted in a way that honors your values, that you didn't compromise your integrity just to fit in or avoid conflict. It comes from being able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I did my best with what I had today. So many people go through life disconnected from their own character. They chase goals, they perform roles, they meet expectations, but they never pause to ask if they're becoming someone they respect. You can fool others with appearance, with charm, with achievements, but deep down, only you know if you're living honestly. When you ask yourself if you're proud of who you were today, you break out of autopilot and bring yourself back into full awareness. You're not just reacting to life, you're responding with purpose. This question demands that you stop hiding from your own reflection. Maybe today you lost your temper when you could have been patient. Maybe you gossiped when you could have stayed silent. Maybe you stayed silent when you should have spoken up. Maybe you made excuses when you could have made an effort. None of these things make you a bad person. They make you human. But what separates the growing from the stagnant is reflection. And this question invites you to notice those moments, not with shame, but with responsibility. It also gives you credit for the good. Maybe today you chose kindness over sarcasm. Maybe you showed up for someone when it was inconvenient. Maybe you told the truth when a lie would have been easier. Maybe you honored your boundaries when others tried to cross them. Maybe you faced something difficult and didn't let it break you. Those moments matter. They may seem small, but they are the building blocks of a character you can be proud of. And when you acknowledge them, you build self-respect. Being proud of yourself isn't about comparison. It's not about being better than someone else. It's about being better than you were yesterday. It's about seeing that you've grown more disciplined, more compassionate, more honest, more aligned with your higher self. It's about realizing that even in your flaws, you're showing effort. Even in your struggle, you're showing up. And that is worth honoring. This question also becomes a compass. If your answer is no, then it gives you direction. You know where you need to improve. You know where you weren't your best. And that awareness is powerful because the people who transform their lives are not the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who learn from every mistake and use it as fuel. They are brave enough to admit when they're falling short and humble enough to correct themselves. Most people avoid self-evaluation because it's uncomfortable, but growth is always uncomfortable. You can't heal what you won't look at. You can't grow where you won't reflect. This question invites you to become your own accountability partner. It trains you to stay conscious of your identity, not just your actions. It helps you build a relationship with yourself based on honesty, growth, and respect. And over time, when asked consistently, It creates a life that you don't just exist in, you take pride in. Fear is one of the most natural emotions we experience, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood and misused. Most people believe fear is a signal to stop, to retreat, to stay safe. But for those who are growing, evolving, and chasing a higher version of themselves, fear is not a warning, it's a doorway. The question, what did I do today that scared me, isn't just about thrill seeking or stepping into danger. It's about tracking your growth, because real growth always involves discomfort. If you're not scared by something you're doing today, there's a high chance you're not challenging yourself enough to break through your limitations. Fear shows up every time you're about to expand. It appears when you're moving into unfamiliar territory, when you're about to speak your truth, when you're risking rejection, when you're doing something you've never done before. It is the shadow that appears right before your breakthrough. And if you don't learn to lean into it, you'll stay stuck day after day, year after year, trapped in a life that feels safe but stagnant. And nothing kills potential faster than comfort. Fear is your mind's way of protecting you from failure, but it doesn't know the difference between real danger and imagined risk. That's why you have to rewire your relationship with it. You have to stop seeing fear as an enemy and start seeing it as a signpost. When you ask yourself, what scared you today? You're not looking for chaos. You're looking for evidence that you showed up fully. You're looking for signs that you stretched your comfort zone, that you didn't let hesitation decide your future. Because the truth is, your dream life lives on the other side of everything you're afraid to do. Maybe today it was speaking up in a room where you usually stay silent. Maybe it was telling someone how you really feel. Maybe it was applying for something you didn't feel good enough for. Maybe it was setting a boundary with someone who's walked over you for too long. Whatever it was, if it made your heart race, if it made you pause and consider running the other way, but you did it anyway, then you've grown. That's not just courage. That's transformation. People often think courage means being fearless, but the most courageous people in the world feel fear all the time. The only difference is they move through it. They don't wait for the fear to disappear before they act. They use the fear as a signal that they're on the right path. Because what scares you often reveals what matters to you. It points you toward the areas in your life where your growth is hiding. The more often you confront fear, the more resilient you become. Your brain starts to trust that fear doesn't equal death. Your nervous system learns to calm itself in chaos. Your confidence builds, not because you're always winning, but because you're no longer hiding, you're no longer shrinking, you're no longer a slave to what-if scenarios and imagined failures. You're becoming bold, brave, powerful. When you make it a habit to do something every day that scares you, you train your body and mind to embrace challenge instead of avoid it. You learn to take action in spite of discomfort. And over time, fear no longer controls your decisions. It becomes your invitation to evolve. The person you want to become is already on the other side of fear, waiting for you to arrive. And every time you ask this question, you're getting closer. We often overestimate what we can accomplish in a week and underestimate what we can accomplish in a year. That's because we've been conditioned to chase quick results, instant wins, and massive changes overnight. But real transformation doesn't happen in big explosions. It happens in small, consistent steps repeated daily. The question, what small step did I take toward my goals today, may seem simple, but it's one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself. It keeps your dreams from staying stuck in the future and pulls them into the present. It reminds you that progress isn't about perfection or speed. It's about movement. Even a tiny step forward. Big goals can feel overwhelming. They can paralyze you with pressure. You start thinking about everything you need to do, everything you haven't done, and before you know it, you're drowning in the weight of it all. That's why small steps are so important. They break the cycle of overthinking. They interrupt procrastination. They simplify your focus. You don't need to know how you're going to build the whole thing. You just need to know your next move. And once you take it, the next one reveals itself. Momentum is created by motion, not by waiting for the perfect time or plan. When you ask yourself what step you took today, you're holding yourself accountable to take action, not just make plans. It's easy to live in your head, dreaming of success, talking about what you want to do, watching others live your dream from a distance. But action is what separates the dreamers from the doers. You don't build anything just by thinking about it. You build by showing up, even when it's hard. You build by doing something that moves the needle, even if no one sees it but you. This kind of daily discipline compounds. You might not see the impact today or even this week, but over time, those small steps add up to massive results. 1 page a day becomes a book. 10 minutes of learning a new skill becomes a mastery over time. 1 honest conversation becomes a stronger relationship. 1 workout becomes strength. $1 saved becomes wealth. Every big success story is really just a long string of small decisions made consistently, even when motivation fades. Small steps are also how you stay connected to your goals emotionally. When you're moving, you feel engaged. You feel a sense of progress. You build self-trust. You stop seeing your dreams as distant fantasies and start treating them as responsibilities. The act of asking what step you took forces you to be intentional. It doesn't allow you to just float through the day passively. It challenges you to make sure every day counts, even if it's just in one area. And the beauty is, the step doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. Maybe it's sending an email, having a conversation, brainstorming ideas, organizing a plan, practicing a skill, investing your time wisely, or even resting with purpose to recharge. The step doesn't always have to be productive in the traditional sense. It just needs to move you closer, mentally, emotionally, or practically, to the life you want. There will be days when life gets messy, days when chaos takes over and motivation disappears, but this question keeps you grounded. It reminds you that no matter how busy or discouraged you feel, there's always something you can do. 1 action, 1 shift, 1 step. The people who succeed aren't always the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who don't stop walking. They're the ones who wake up every day and ask themselves, what can I do today that keeps me moving forward? And they do it even when no one is watching. Avoidance is a silent thief. It steals your peace, your progress, and your power, quietly, slowly, and without resistance. Every time you avoid something you know you should face, it doesn't go away. It waits, it grows, it gains strength in the shadows of your hesitation. The question, what did I avoid today that I should have faced, is not about guilt, it's about clarity. It brings to light the things you are running from, the things you are procrastinating, the conversations you are dodging, the truths you are not ready to admit. And until you confront those things, they will control you from the background. Avoidance feels safe in the moment, but it builds cages around your potential. When you don't face something, you give it power over you. That unspoken conflict weighs you down. That neglected task lingers in your mind. That ignored emotion festers and turns into anxiety or resentment. You carry it with you into your relationships, your work, your dreams. And over time, it becomes heavier, not because it's harder to deal with, but because your fear of it has grown. The longer you avoid, the scarier it feels. But the moment you face it, the illusion breaks. The fear starts to dissolve and you regain control. Avoidance often disguises itself as logic. You'll tell yourself it's not the right time, or I'll deal with it tomorrow, or it's not that serious. But deep down, you know exactly what you're delaying. And you know it's costing you. Maybe it's a difficult conversation you've been postponing. Maybe it's a boundary you need to set. Maybe it's a decision you've been putting off. Maybe it's a truth about yourself you're not ready to admit. Whatever it is, it doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It just grows roots and spreads into other areas of your life. The freedom you're looking for is often buried under the very thing you refuse to face. Avoidance creates anxiety, but action creates clarity. You don't need to solve everything in one day, but you do need to face it. You need to stop pretending it's not affecting you. The moment you look it in the eye, it starts to lose its grip. And even if it's messy, even if it's uncomfortable, at least it's no longer silently controlling you. Asking yourself what you avoided helps you grow in self-awareness. It trains you to catch those small moments of hesitation. It teaches you to recognize the patterns you fall into when fear shows up, whether it's distraction, denial, or delay. And once you're aware, you can choose differently. You can replace avoidance with action, fear with courage, and doubt with clarity. It doesn't mean you'll always feel ready. It means you'll start taking control anyway. Avoidance also keeps you stuck in cycles. If you keep avoiding hard conversations, your relationships stay shallow or strained. If you keep avoiding discipline, your goals stay distant. If you keep avoiding truth, your healing gets delayed. But once you start facing things, even imperfectly, your entire life starts to shift. You become lighter, stronger, more honest, more in control. Your confidence grows because you know you're not hiding anymore. This question doesn't need to make you feel bad. It's meant to make you feel powerful, because every day is another chance to face something you've been avoiding. And each time you do, you take back a piece of yourself. You become someone who deals with things instead of running from them, someone who chooses growth over comfort, someone who understands that the only way out is through. Gratitude isn't just a feel-good exercise or something to practice during holidays. It's a mindset, a discipline, and a power source. Asking yourself, what am I truly grateful for today, isn't just about looking for something positive. It's about shifting your internal state and reprogramming your mind to focus on abundance rather than lack. In a world that constantly screams for more success, more money, more recognition, it's easy to overlook what's already in front of you. The human mind tends to focus on problems, on what's missing, on what's broken. But when you deliberately pause and focus on gratitude, you begin to see how much is actually working in your favor. Gratitude grounds you. It brings you into the present moment. When you're always chasing the next win, the next milestone, the next goal, you end up missing your life. You get so caught up in the future that you forget to appreciate the now. But when you stop and truly feel grateful, even for the small things, your entire emotional landscape begins to shift. You stop taking things for granted. You start noticing the beauty in ordinary moments, the warmth of the sun, the kindness of a stranger, the comfort of a home, the breath in your lungs. Gratitude isn't about ignoring your struggles. It's about recognizing your blessings alongside them. A powerful thing happens when you live in gratitude. Your energy changes. Grateful people tend to attract more peace, more opportunities, and better relationships. Why? Because they radiate appreciation. They see what others don't. They value what others overlook. And that mindset of appreciation becomes magnetic. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing to focus on what's still good, even when things are hard. It's about deciding that there is always something to be thankful for, even on the darkest days. Gratitude also builds resilience. When life hits you hard, and it will, gratitude is what keeps you from sinking. It reminds you of what you still have, of what still matters. It gives you perspective. Problems shrink when you see them next to your blessings, and that perspective can be the difference between falling apart and finding your strength. Gratitude doesn't make the pain disappear, but it gives you something solid to stand on when everything feels unstable. When you make gratitude a daily question, you train your brain to notice the good. That consistent focus rewires your mindset. It softens bitterness. It quiets envy. It heals disappointment. Gratitude reminds you that you are not empty. You are not lacking. You are already rich in ways that can't be measured in numbers. And the more you acknowledge what you have, the more life gives you to be grateful for. It's a cycle that feeds itself, but it starts with you being intentional enough to look. It's easy to be grateful when life is going well, but the real power of gratitude shows up when life is heavy, when things are uncertain, when you're tired, when you're hurting. Those are the moments when gratitude becomes your weapon. It gives you strength that logic can't. It reminds you that light still exists, that even in the middle of chaos, you are still surrounded by gifts, people who love you, lessons that changed you, chances to try again. This daily question isn't just a feel-good journal prompt. It's a habit that reshapes your emotional state, your relationships, and your direction. Because when you walk through life with a grateful heart, you become more open, more grounded, and more capable of handling whatever comes your way. Gratitude doesn't change your circumstances overnight, but it changes how you see them. And that shift in perspective can change everything. Every day you have the opportunity to show up as your highest self or to shrink into patterns that no longer serve you. Asking the question, was I true to myself today, is a mirror to your soul. It demands honesty. It asks whether you lived in alignment with who you really are, or whether you compromise your values, your truth, or your identity to fit into someone else's box. So many people spend their days playing roles, wearing masks, and saying yes when they want to say no, all because they're afraid to disappoint others or rock the boat. But every time you betray yourself to please others, a part of you quietly dies inside. Being true to yourself means listening to your inner voice louder than the noise of the world. It means honoring your intuition, your values, and your truth, even when it's uncomfortable. The world will always try to mold you. It will always have opinions about who you should be, how you should think, what you should do, but only you live inside your mind, your heart, your spirit. Only you feel the tension when you're out of alignment. That's why this question is powerful. It brings you back to your core. It reminds you to live by your own compass, not by someone else's map. When you're not true to yourself, you feel it in your body. There's an uneasiness that follows you, a quiet dissatisfaction that lingers even when things look fine on the outside. You may achieve success and still feel empty. You may be surrounded by people and still feel alone. Because if you've abandoned your truth to get there, no amount of external validation will fill that internal void. Living inauthentically is a slow form of self-rejection. It chips away at your confidence and makes you doubt your worth. But when you live with integrity, when your actions match your values, you walk lighter, you speak more freely, you sleep more peacefully. Being true to yourself doesn't mean being selfish or rigid. It means being honest. It means owning your needs, your desires, your beliefs, and your boundaries. It means having the courage to stand alone if necessary. It means not watering yourself down to be more palatable. You weren't born to be a carbon copy. You were born to express something unique. And if you don't, the world misses out on your gift. So many people spend their entire lives trying to be liked, trying to fit in, trying to avoid conflict, and they lose themselves in the process. But being liked is not the same as being whole. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You just need to be at peace with yourself. When you reflect on whether you were true to yourself, you start catching the moments you sold yourself short. Maybe you stayed silent when you had something meaningful to say. Maybe you said yes out of fear instead of desire. Maybe you played small because you were afraid your light would make others uncomfortable. The point is not to judge yourself. It's to become aware, because awareness is the first step to change. You can't correct what you're not willing to confront. And the more you practice this self-check-in, the stronger your sense of self becomes. This daily honesty builds inner strength. You stop outsourcing your worth to other people. You stop waiting for permission to be who you are. You start trusting yourself deeply. You begin making choices that feel right, not just look right. And that's how you build a life that's not just successful, but meaningful. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to look back and realize you lived everyone else's version of your life except your own. You want to be able to say, I was real, I was honest, I was me. Growth is never accidental. It requires awareness, intention, and a willingness to stretch beyond comfort. When you ask yourself, what did I do today that helped me grow? You're choosing to pay attention to your evolution instead of merely existing through the motions of life. Too often, people confuse busyness with progress, mistaking activity for achievement. But just because your schedule is full doesn't mean your soul is expanding. Real growth is quiet, deliberate, and often uncomfortable. It's in the small moments of discipline, the difficult decisions, the uncomfortable conversations, and the conscious choices that push you just beyond what's familiar. You don't grow by repeating the same thoughts, habits, and environments that keep you stagnant. You grow when you choose differently, when you lean into learning rather than settling for what you already know. Growth isn't always dramatic or loud. Sometimes it's saying no when you always say yes. Sometimes it's staying calm when you normally explode. Sometimes it's choosing to forgive, to be patient, to ask questions instead of pretending you have the answers. It's not about perfection, it's about momentum. And if you can find even one small way you stretched yourself today, then you've taken a step toward becoming more of who you were meant to be. Growth also demands humility. It asks you to admit that you don't know everything, that there's more to learn, more to become. It requires you to look at your life honestly and ask where you're still avoiding your edge. The edge is where the transformation happens. The edge is where you leave behind what's comfortable and step into what's possible. Most people fear the edge because it's unfamiliar. But those who grow understand that discomfort is not a signal to retreat. It's a sign you're on the right track. If you're never uncomfortable, you're likely never evolving. Every experience you face can be a chance for growth, but only if you choose to see it that way. A failure can teach resilience. A rejection can refine your focus. A loss can deepen your empathy. Growth doesn't mean life gets easier. It means you get stronger. It means your mindset gets sharper. Your emotional intelligence gets deeper. Your responses become more conscious. The version of you today should be wiser than the one from yesterday, even if just by 1 inch. And that's the beauty of this question. It keeps your attention on that inch. It makes you aware of your progress, no matter how small. Sometimes growth shows up in things others don't see. The temptation you resisted, the effort you gave even when no one noticed, the decision to be honest instead of impressive, the willingness to show up even when you felt afraid. These are the quiet victories that compound over time and shape your character. And when you learn to measure growth from within instead of through comparison, you gain a kind of power that no one can take from you. It's the power of knowing you're evolving, even if it's invisible to the world. Reflecting daily on what helped you grow trains your mind to seek out those opportunities more often. You become more intentional with your time, more aware of your choices, and more committed to becoming your best self. You start reading more, listening more, trying new things, taking calculated risks, and having deeper conversations. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Growth becomes your standard, not your struggle. And with each day that passes, you stop fearing change and start craving it because you realize that who you're becoming matters more than what you're achieving. The goal is no longer just to succeed, it's to evolve. When you ask yourself, did I add value to someone's life today? You shift your focus from self-centered ambition to purposeful contribution. It's easy to get caught up in your own world, your goals, your struggles, your routines. But fulfillment doesn't come solely from achievement, it comes from impact. There's a unique kind of satisfaction that only comes when you know you've made someone else's day a little better. Adding value doesn't always require grand gestures or massive resources. Sometimes it's found in the smallest acts. A kind word, a helping hand, a moment of genuine presence. The question reminds you that your influence stretches far beyond what you see, and your life has the potential to be a blessing every single day. Really, we all carry the power to be a difference maker, and that power is in our choices. Choosing kindness when it's easier to be indifferent, choosing to listen when someone needs to be heard, choosing to uplift rather than criticize. These aren't just good deeds, they are acts of leadership, empathy, and significance. When you live with a mindset of contribution, you naturally create a ripple effect. You inspire others to do the same. Your energy becomes contagious, your presence becomes a gift. And the best part? The more value you add to others, the more meaningful your own life becomes. That's the paradox of service. The more you give, the more you grow. Adding value isn't limited to charity or external service. It can happen within your closest relationships. It means showing up fully for your loved ones, being present, being reliable, being encouraging. It means choosing to be a source of strength rather than stress, a light rather than a weight. The people closest to you should feel stronger, more hopeful, and more confident because of the way you treat them. And if you're mindful enough to ask this question daily, you begin to catch the subtle ways in which your words and actions impact those around you, for better or worse. Value can also be added through your work. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a teacher, an artist, or a student, there are always ways to go beyond the minimum and bring excellence, creativity, or passion into what you do. When your work is driven by the intention to serve others, it carries more weight. It becomes more than just a job. It becomes a calling. People can feel the difference when you're working to serve instead of just to survive. They remember how you made them feel. They remember the little touches, the extra effort, the way you cared. That's how trust is built. That's how reputations are made. That's how lives are changed. Living with the intention to add value requires awareness. You must be tuned in to the people around you, their needs, their struggles, their victories. You have to be willing to step outside your own bubble and recognize where your presence could make a difference. It also requires humility. It's not about being the hero or seeking applause. It's about choosing to make someone's load a little lighter, their day a little brighter, their path a little clearer. And sometimes you may never know the full impact you've had, but that's not the point. The point is to live in such a way that your existence is a net positive for the world. When you reflect each day on whether you've added value, you begin to live with more intentionality, more compassion, and more purpose. You stop measuring your life only by what you get and start measuring it by what you give. You start to understand that success without significance is empty, but even the smallest act of kindness can echo far beyond what you imagined. This is how you build a legacy, not by what you achieve alone, but by what you help others become because of you.